For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss the democratic and effective policing. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Since you wrote your article, our Police Minister Fikile Mbalula has recently released the crime statistics and he has promised to make our country safer. What do you think of that?
You know, the statistics don't tell a very good picture, although, and we must also remember, statistics only reflect those crimes that have been reported. We don't know how many others have not been reported, especially rape and other sexual offences. People don't want to report these things, but even it's only, as Gareth Newham of the ISS was saying, it's only with murder that you really have the evidence of the body there. So it's much easier to detect that there has been a crime than theft and a whole lot of other things. You only find out sometimes much later when you feel in your pocket and there used to be money there and there's no money there anymore. Business Day had quite an interesting article yesterday, and they were saying that the picture is actually very worrying for average citizen, because the biggest crime figure still, or the most worrying crime figure, which has actually increased in absolute terms, is murder. And one would expect the South African murder figures to be lower than places like Colombia, where you have extensive drug dealing and things like that. But South Africa is much higher. And a number of these crimes, for example, I don't know if it was in Business Day, someone was saying, since cars have become, car manufacturers have made cars much more not much more hard to steal. What it has meant that people who want to steal the car have to steal the car with the occupants inside, so that hijacking has become much more of a factor than before. It did decrease at a certain point, and that's quite important to examine. But before I come to that, I want to refer to the fact that the evidence, the presentation of the police this week and the week before demonstrated that there is amongst the police a great deal of criminality. There's a lot of statistics about police who've been found guilty of this, found guilty of that, and the wheels of justice within the police force don't seem to turn very fast, and a lot of them actually leave the police force without accounting for the crimes they've committed. A lot of guns go missing, a whole lot of things like this. And there is a general problem in terms of the functioning of the police force. You've had 4 or 5 commissioners in the last 8 years. You have a lot of other acting appointments. Mbalula in the beginning did some good things, getting rid of Nhlameza, but since Nhlameza there remain acting appointments. The crime intelligence head, Mdluli, has been on suspension for 6 years. And you have the situation where you don't have a system which arises from having one person in place to head a unit of the police force for a long time. So consequently, people don't have institutionalized patterns of working, and that is necessary if you want the police force to work well. Now, Newham, in his, I think he made comments on ENCA, some of it in writing as well, points to the fact that some crimes like hijacking went down in Gauteng at a certain point. And they went down because they had developed the intelligence capacity and they were able to work out who were the people who were hijacking, how they did it and all of this, and they were able to bring it down. And he points to the fact that the absence of national criminal intelligence is a big barrier to bringing down crime in South Africa, and they are not finalizing this case against General Dhlamini, although according to ISS, Institute for Security Studies, there's very strong evidence against him. And the reasoning that they advance is that politics is actually coming into policing, in that Dhlamini is very close to President Zuma. You'll recall that in 2012, before the Mangaung conference of ANC, Dhlamini sent a memorandum to Zuma saying the following people are plotting against you. Now, I don't know what that's got to do with criminal intelligence, unless they're plotting illegally. And it's interesting that Dhlamini's background, it's not ANC, his background is the security police of apartheid. And you've got these people there who are being used in order to assist Zuma to deal with his allies, and consequently also upsetting the operation of the police in general. So the police statistics don't tell a good tale. There is still this very big emphasis on fighting, and fighting meaning being rough and tough. And Mbalula continued to speak of this thing of make them drink their urine and stuff like that. So it's very unfortunate that there is not, when they say go to back to basics, they say things like, well, you must be responsive in the police station, you must listen to what the public says and all of that, but they're not actually working on what are the methodologies for tackling crime. Do we have a culture of slow patient detection in South Africa? And the answer is no.
You raised the macho language of the police minister.
Yes.
Are there any indications that he has reflected on this in the light of the wide public?
The minister does seem to be thinking about his job and about how he conducts his job. And the macho language is part of his being present on the ground, which is quite a good thing, that he makes spot visits to places to check how things are done, and that's energetic, and that's probably a very good thing. However, some people say that there's a distinction between operational work and being a minister, and that he's blurring the lines. And it's harder to build up a cadre of functioning police members if the minister is encroaching on those activities, which he appears in some people's eyes to be doing. As I said, I don't think the macho language is disappearing, and the emphasis is still on fighting crime. Now, the thing with crime is that it's very important to have the support of the community, to have the community say to you, look, this thing is happening here, this is suspicious. And community policing forums were established in order to be an interface between the communities and the police force to assist in crime prevention. And the police have in the past not taken to interactions with the community policing forums, and there's no real significant mention of them by the minister or the present commissioners. They see themselves as the centre. So I think, unfortunately, there is still an orientation towards the use of force, and in my view, some of this is actually illegal. And if you are illegally inciting force, how can you prevent other people from committing acts of illegality? That becomes a problem.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crima Media's Polity about the democratic and effective policing.